I'm going to be that guy, but you'll notice this new addition we have back here. Some have kind of coined it Holy Roasters. I don't know if that's going to stick or not. But anyhow, that was completely just donated, and it was just such a blessing. And it's going to be great for us. But we're going to woman and man that. See, I got it politically correct, right? We're going to woman it and we're going to man it. And so give us a little time on that, and we're going to get it. And again, everything comes with an expense, and so we're not going to charge for coffee and stuff like that, but we will have if you want to donate and stuff like that. But we can't just have anybody back there just doing things. And so we're putting a team together, and very soon that will happen. And so appreciate your patience with that, and it's going to be really, really, really cool thing. So thank you, and I'm going to turn it over to song leader.
I don't know if I'm going to be able to stand right there. I'm going to stand over here. The camera can still see me, right? Terry? Okay. There is a habitation. There is a habitation built by the living God for all of every nation who seek their grand abode. O Zion, Zion, I long thy gates to see.
George Mason dug his nails into the palms of his hands until the pain... It was Christmas Eve. And as usual, George Mason was the last to leave the office. He walked over to a massive safe, spun the dials, swung open the heavy door, making sure the door would not close behind him as he stepped inside. A square of white cardboard was taped just above the topmost row of strong boxes. On the card, a few words were written. George Mason stared at those words, remembering. Exactly 1 year ago, he had entered the same safe vault. And then, behind his back, slowly, noiselessly, the ponderous door swung shut. He was trapped, entombed in the sudden and terrifying dark. He hurled himself at the unyielding door, his hoarse cry sounding like an explosion. Through his mind flashed all the stories he had heard of men found suffocated in time vaults. No clock controlled this mechanism. The safe would remain unlocked until it was opened from the outside tomorrow morning. Then his realization hit him. No one would come tomorrow. Tomorrow was Christmas. Once more, he flung himself at the door, shouting wildly until he sank to his knees in exhaustion. Silence came, high-pitched, singing silence that seemed deafening. More than 36 hours would pass before anyone came. 36 hours in a steel box 3 feet wide, 8 feet long, and 7 feet high. Would the oxygen last? Perspiring and breathing heavily, he felt his way around the floor. Then, in the far right-hand corner, just above the floor, he found a small circular opening. Quickly, he thrust his finger into it and felt faint but unmistakable, a cool current of air. The tension released was so sudden that he burst into tears. But at last he sat up. Surely he would not have to stay trapped for the full 36 hours. Somebody would miss him, but who? He was unmarried and lived alone. The maid who cleaned his apartment was just a servant. He had always treated her as such. He had been invited to spend Christmas Eve with his brother's family, but the children got on his nerves and expected presents. A friend had asked him to go to a home for elderly people on Christmas Day and play the piano. George Mason was a good musician, but he had made some excuse or other. He had intended to sit at home, listening to some new recordings he was giving himself. George Mason dug his nails into the palms of his hands until the pain balanced the misery in his mind. Nobody would come and let him out. Nobody. Miserably, the world on Christmas Day went by and the succeeding night. On the morning after Christmas, he heard the head clerk came into the office at the usual time, opened the safe, and then went on to his private office. No one saw George Mason stagger out into the corridor, run to the water cooler, and drink great gulps of water. No one paid any attention to him as he left and took a taxi home. Then he shaved, changed his wrinkled clothes, ate breakfast, and returned to his office where his employees greeted him casually. That day he met several acquaintances and talked to his own brother. Grimly, the truth closed in on George Mason. He had vanished from human society during the great festival of brotherhood. No one had missed him at all. Reluctantly, George Mason began to think about the true meaning of Christmas. Was it possible that he had been blind all these years with selfishness, indifference, pride? Was not giving, after all, the essence of Christmas because it marked the time God gave his Son to the world? All through the year that followed, the little hesitant deeds of kindness with small unnoticed act of unselfishness, George Mason tried to prepare himself. Now, once more, it was Christmas Eve. Slowly, he backed out of the safe and closed it. He touched its grim steel face lightly, almost affectionately, and left the office. There he goes now in his black overcoat and hat, the same George Mason as a year ago, or is it? He walks a few blocks and flags a taxi, anxious not to be late. His nephews are expecting him to help them trim the tree. Afterwards, he is taking his brother and sister-in-law to a Christmas play. Why is he so happy? Why does this jostling against others, laden as he is with bundles, exhilarate and delight him? Perhaps the card has something to do with it. The card he taped inside his office safe last New Year's Day. On the card is written, in George Mason's own hand, to love people, to be indispensable somewhere. That is the purpose of life. That is the secret of happiness. I could probably pick out 15 or 20 scriptures to read to tag along with that story, but one came to mind from Micah chapter 6. In Micah 6, God is getting on to Israel, which seems like a theme in the Old Testament. But starting in verse 1, it says, listen to what the Lord is saying. Stand up and state your case against me. Let the mountains and hills be called to witness your complaints. And now, O mountains, listen to the Lord's complaint. He has a case against his people. He will bring charges against Israel. O my people, what have I done to you? What have I done to make you tired of me? Answer me. For I brought you out of Egypt and redeemed you from slavery. I sent Moses, Aaron, and Miriam to help you. Don't you remember, my people, how King Balak of Moab tried to have you cursed and how Balaam, son of Beor, blessed you instead? And remember your journey from Acacia Grove to Gilgal when I, the Lord, did everything I could to teach you about my faithfulness. What can we bring to the Lord? What should we bring him burnt offerings? Should we bow before God Most High with offerings of yearling calves? Should we offer him thousands of rams and 10,000 rivers of olive oil? Should we sacrifice our firstborn children to pay for our sins? No. O people, the Lord has told you what is good. And this is what he requires of you, to do what is right, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. Justice, to act justly, to live with a sense of right and wrong, to walk responsibly before God and protect the needs of the innocent, is defined as the quality of being just, righteousness, equitableness, and moral rightness. Mercy, to love mercy is to show loving kindness, loyal love towards others. Humility, the call to walk humbly before God reveals our very heart and relationship towards him. God desires that we rely fully on him and his wisdom instead of seeking our own way and doing what is right in our own eyes. Jesus is the perfect example of humility for us. He did. What he did, all he did, was a direct reflection of his Father. That's all that's required of us. To do justice, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with our God. I'd hate to be a George Mason who disappears to society from time to time because of our willingness maybe to be alone, to not connect with people, to not establish relationships. And think about the underlying theme of the entire Bible is relationships. It's God's relationship with his people. It's our relationship with Jesus Christ, and ultimately it's God's relationship with Jesus Christ. His willingness to send his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish but have everlasting life. I just pray that none of us are like George Mason. And if we ever find ourselves like that, we'll have that eye-opening event where George Mason realizes, you know what? I need to spend time with people. I need to love people. I need to find myself, which I love the way this story put it, go be indispensable somewhere. Because there's not a single one of us that attend Azalea City Church of Christ or live in this world that is indispensable. If you have any need tonight, I encourage you to come forward as we stand and sing together.
When we walk with the Lord in the light of his word, what a glory he sheds on our way. While we do his good will, he abides with us still, and with all who will trust and obey. Trust and obey, for there's no other way to be happy in Jesus but to trust and obey. That in fellowships we will sit at his feet, or will walk by his side in the way. What he says we will do, where he says we will go. Never fear, only trust and obey. Trust and obey, for there's no other way to be happy in Jesus but to trust and obey.
Thank you all for being here this evening. I know we're going to depart to our classes. Very thankful for all of our Bible class teachers and the time and preparation that they have put forth into having a great class tonight. Pray that we'll all take something from it. Remember Friday, the fundraiser to help out Azalea City Christian School, and the money that is raised from that is going to construct a new playground outside and on our church grounds that is going to benefit not only Azalea City Christian School, but our children from Azalea City as well. So please, if you can, show up, show your support, and help them out. Also, remember, Grinchmas is this coming Sunday. We'd love for all of you to be here for that. We're going to have a great time together. Remember, Sunday before Grinchmas is a great opportunity for us to be together for Bible class and worship and fellowship one another. So looking forward to those times. Listen, December is always a busy time. We've got Christmas parties from different groups. You got the New Year's Eve party at the Pose, Grinchmas, the Azalea City Christian School fundraiser. And there's a few other things. We got the Thursday night Bible study too. So don't forget those things if you can. In any and every opportunity, show up and let's fellowship with each other. Let's strengthen each other. Let's love each other, support each other. Thank you, guys. Logan's going to close us out in prayer, then we'll be dismissed to our classes.
I don't have a, if I had a t-shirt on under here, I would take this off.
You want me to give you my t-shirt? All right, one more.
Hey, there's a bundle of photo right here.
The whole thing on there. Let's go. I love your enthusiasm.
Said the same thing as correction. I'm learning
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. I'm glad to have you with us for our Wednesday night Bible study. And this is one that I will be wrapping up this series that Terry and I have been bringing to you all for discussion since about, I think it was sometime in August. I'd have to go back and look. I would like to thank you for the kind words that
of encouragement that you all have given me, and I know Terry as well, through this study. I'd like to especially thank Terry for stepping in and filling in when I was absent. And just by the way, if you see me move over to the side right here, it's this is a nervous thing to do, stand up here in front of a group of people. I've got a sweatshirt on and a roaring fire behind me. So
It's just hot.
I told Justin if I had an undershirt on under here, I would have already shed this sweatshirt, but I don't, so I'll spare you all. But I would like to thank Terry. I would like to thank David Barnes. David Barnes, those of you that may not know, put this bug in my ear. I taught a class in here several years ago, and it was just a book it was like a 3 or 4 lesson study on angels. And David, had mentioned this to me. Was it 2020, 2019? It was before COVID. It was a COVID year. And, it just, took a little bit of time before we could bring it to fruition. And, yeah, I hope this study has, I hope you've gotten something out of it. I know I have gotten a lot out of it. It is, we went down some rabbit holes in here, but those rabbit holes that we've kind of went down have really inspired me to do a lot more studying. So, I was debating which way to go tonight, whether we went a little bit more, but where I was kind of leaning to was into some of the writings of Paul, which Paul writes a lot about spiritual things. That you can look at his supernatural worldview, and basically just do a separate study on that. And I didn't want to really open that door. That's something maybe that could be preserved to study at another time. So I just kind of wanted to wrap up and just go back through some of the things that we've talked about the last several months, and just kind of do a review with everyone. And then I've got some closing remarks that I would like to make at the end of this, some words to leave us by. But I hope this class has been as profitable to you all as it has been to me. I've learned a lot more than I knew before I started it, and still studying. But as we kicked off this study, talking about angels, we learned that they are angels created beings, or are they eternal? Have they always been here? What was? Yeah, they are created beings. If we look at Colossians 1:16. Colossians 1:16, for by him all things were created in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or rulers or authorities, all things were created through him and for him. All things there would include angels, so we know that angels are created beings. How long, we debated, this is another debated subject, as many of these were, because let me save some of that for my closing. But how long? When were angels created? When were the spiritual beings created?
Before man.
Yeah, before man. That's kind of where we centered on that. If you look at Job 38:4-7, that was a reference that we made that said angels were present at the creation. So we learned that angels are created beings. They have not always been here, been in existence, but they had a definite beginning. We don't know exactly when that is, but they are subject to God's authority. Turn to Jude 6. Jude 6 says, "And the angels who did not stay within their own position of authority, but left their proper dwelling, he has kept in eternal chains under gloomy darkness until the judgment of the great day." We know that they are, we know by this verse, also look at 2 Peter 2:4, that they are under God's authority. They are subject to God's will. And we have those references there to angels that did sin, that do, and if they're capable of sin, then they have free will, like us. So we did learn that they are subject to God's authority. We learn what kind of beings are angels. Yeah, we learned that they are spiritual beings. We discussed that. Angels are not flesh and blood. Let's look at Luke 24:9. And boy, it is hot up here. I'm sorry, it's 24:39. That was definitely the wrong verse. And these are the words of Christ here. He says, "See my hands and my feet. That is I myself. Touch me and see. For a spirit does not have flesh and bones, as you see that I have." That's Jesus there speaking, but he makes a reference there to spirits that do not have flesh. They do not have flesh and bones. We learned, and I want to come back to this passage a little bit later, in 2 Kings was one of the references, chapter 6, that angels are invisible unless they are revealed. Spiritual beings without flesh and blood are invisible to us as humans, as mankind, unless they are revealed. We did learn that angels are moral beings. They are subject to God's authority. Holy angels serve God. Some angels rebelled, as we learned in Jude 6. You can also see that in 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 4. All right, we learned about some of the roles and activities of angels. What were some of those?
Come on, just.
Messengers. Very good.
I was going to say, we failed them as a teacher.
I know. You didn't know there was going to be a quiz, did you? Angels, and that's the root of the word there. They do have a duty as messengers. That and some of those messages they've announced. We have records of announcing important events. What are some of the important events that angels have announced?
Like the coming of Christ.
Yeah, the coming of Christ. If you look at Luke,
Of Joseph. What Joseph? Wasn't that Zachariah's son, wasn't it?
yeah, John the Baptist.
John the Baptist.
Yes, yes. Luke 1:26 through 38, and Matthew 1:20 through 21. We have an angel there informing Mary and Joseph that they were that Christ was going to be born to Mary. They also deliver God's instructions. Acts 8:26, an angel telling Philip to do what?
Go get the chariot.
Yes, to go meet a chariot, and that chariot had the Ethiopian eunuch in it. And but that message to direct Philip there was from an angel. All right, we said messengers. What else are they? Guardians. Yeah. Protectors.
I wonder which class you're talking about.
Yeah,
Rulers, principalities,
Yeah.
dominions.
exactly.
Isn't that how Lot got out of Sodom and Gomorrah?
Angels
Sure.
directed them.
Yeah.
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 Goes down.
Yeah. They did. Servants of God's people. We looked at Hebrews 1:14. Let's look at that again. Somebody read that one for me.
Are they not all ministering spirits sent out to serve for the sake of those who are to inherit salvation?
You know, we spent some time talking about this verse. You know, we don't know exactly how that takes place, but you know, we have the Hebrew writer there writing that through inspiration, so it's true somehow. But yes, we mentioned that protecting and delivering God's servants. Psalms 34:7 says, "The angel of the Lord encamps around those who fear Him and delivers them." Bill mentioned the angels coming to Lot and getting them out of Sodom and Gomorrah. We also have Acts chapter 12, verses 7 through 11. What happened there? Let's go read it. Yep. Yes, Acts chapter 12, 7 through 11. I probably butchered that. Acts 12, 7 through 11.
I read it.
Okay.
And behold, an angel of the Lord stood next to him, and a light shone in the cell. He struck Peter on the side and woke him, saying, "Get up quickly." And the chains fell off his hands. And the angel said to him, "Dress yourself, put on your sandals." And he did so. And he said to him, "Wrap your cloak around you and follow me." And he went out and followed him. He did not know that what was being done by the angel was real, but thought he was seeing a vision. When they had passed the first and the second guard, they came to the iron gate leading into the city. It opened for them of its own accord, and they went out and went along one street, and immediately the angel left him. When Peter came to himself, he said, "Now I am sure that the Lord has sent his angel and rescued me from the hand of Herod and from all that the Jewish people were expecting."
Yeah, we read that. We studied that passage during the study as well. I just think it's a fascinating story there. We mentioned that here is this angel coming to Peter while he's in prison. Tells him to get up. The chains fall off. They pass through all of these guards unnoticed. And Peter questions whether whether this was just a vision or a dream, and he realizes this is really happening. So it's just a fascinating story of angels there, and an example of how they protected and delivered God's servants, Peter in particular.
I think it's fascinating that they're not flesh and blood, but yet he was able to strike Peter.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and going to that point, bringing back Bill's point about Lot, we did not spend a lot of time there when we were going over this, but you know what the people want to do with them.
Yeah.
The men, and then they laid down, they went in the house. And so they were certainly in a.
It was a physical manifestation of them, yes. So, that's.
But when Christ came to see the disciples after he had been resurrected, he walked through a wall, but yet Thomas touched his side, and it didn't just poke through, he touched his side.
Yeah,
So-
and I think David made the comment during one class we were talking about that, about these spiritual beings, they're not bound by time and space like we are in the physical world. And I think that's pretty evident. Just like you had spoken of, we've mentioned that when we talked about Christ walking through a wall, but still had a physical body, but still wasn't bound by time or space. So it's pretty pretty amazing when you look at these things in a lot more detail than what we've given them. We have examples of angels participating in worship. Isaiah 6:23, Revelation 5:11 and 12, where they're constant. We see spiritual beings. They're constantly praising God. Luke 15:10. Somebody read that.
I've got it. Likewise, I say to you, there is joy in the presence of the angels of God over one sinner who repents.
So we have them participating in worship. We have them also praising God and rejoicing when a sinner repents. Go ahead, Terry.
I was just going to say, it's pretty neat. My father-in-law is watching from a hospital bed because he just said, hey, don't forget the death angel in Egypt. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, what they did, what he
Yeah.
did. You know, he didn't just lead them, he struck them, you know, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly. You know, talking about warriors and things like that, I do have that on there, but I don't have that example. You know, Terry covered that with the angel of the Lord.
Isaiah
Yeah.
37:36.
Go ahead. You got it?
And the angel of the Lord went out and struck down 185,000 in the camp of the Assyrians, and when people arose early in the morning, behold, these were all dead bodies.
Pretty amazing.
Yep.
By the way, that was also a message.
Yeah.
Not a verbal one.
Yeah,
But a physical one.
that's right. It was delivering a message. It was. You know, that is actually the next point I have in here. They're instruments of God's judgment. Carrying out, you know, they have carried out God's wrath. We mentioned it, Genesis 19, 1 through 13. Who destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah?
Hey, and they also struck those men with blindness.
Yeah, exactly. You look at Revelation chapter 8 and chapter 9. What are the angels there? They're instruments of God's wrath.
Of course, Michael is, you know, the archangel Michael, how amazingly powerful he was. And between Ezekiel and the other things, he
Yeah.
fought for the body of Moses and,
Yeah.
and different stuff.
So, yeah, one other thing, talking about instruments of God's judgment, look at Matthew 13, 41 and 42. It says, the Son of Man will send his angels, and they will gather out of his kingdom all causes of sin and all lawbreakers, and throw them into the fiery furnace. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. So we have angels throughout our biblical history being instruments of God's judgment. They will be at the end as well, instruments of God's judgment.
They also carried the poor man to Abraham's side.
That is true.
In Luke 16.
You know, we talked about that. We talked about that passage as well. You know, as you know, if you look at that parable, you know, is that something
Yeah.
that they do for all the saints? Yeah. Oh yeah. That I mean that. What about
Ministered to Christ after on the Mount Man in the Garden of Gethsemane.
Very true. You know, when at Christ's temptation, that's another good example of them being ministering servants. You know, they came to Christ there and attended to him, ministered to him after the temptation, and also, you know, what was Jesus' prayer in the garden? Yeah, it was, you know, he asked God to let the cup pass. You know, nevertheless, not my will, but your you know, but you know, God's will. God's will was that the cup couldn't pass. But what did God do?
Sent the angels.
God sent an angel there to give Jesus the strength. And you know, that's just another excellent example of how they ministered to the Jesus, in the life of Christ. And, we have some of those same promises. Don't know how, we've mentioned, that, we are to, passages, we're to be kind to strangers. We don't know when we've entertained angels. That's a passage there. And, there are some, what about, are angels worthy, since they're spiritual beings, are they worthy of worship? No. They are not. Worship is for God alone, Exodus 20, verse 3. Let's look at...
You got some folks in trouble, though. A lot of folks in trouble over the years.
Yes.
Worshiping the fallen ones.
Yes. Let's look at another example that I don't know if we've looked at. Revelation 22. I'm going to pick up in verse 8. When you think about Revelation, this is at the end of that. So this is the end of the revelation to John. Just think about this amazing series that has been revealed to John, that he's wrote down. This is at the end of it here, and he says, I, John, am the one who heard and saw these things, and when I heard and saw them, I fell down to worship at the feet of the angel who showed them to me. What did the angel say? But he said to me, you must not do that. I am a fellow servant with you and your brothers the prophets, and with those who keep the words of this book. Worship who? God. So angels are not worthy of our worship. That is to God alone. Talked a lot in this class about Satan. One thing, turn to 2 Corinthians 11:14. I don't know if this verse got covered. It's an interesting one. And no wonder this is Paul warning about false prophets and things like that, but he says, for even Satan disguises himself as an angel of light.
Goes back to the point that he's not the caricature that has been depicted, over the years. He certainly can be something pleasant to look at. So.
Exactly. And, which is, if you take this verse, go look at Galatians 1:8, which is another reason I just said, if you look at how many passages in here, if you just look around at Paul's writings, you could probably have a whole other study on Paul's writings relating to angels and.
Yeah, Toby, about that, one thing Paul understood, and I think we made this point throughout.
Yeah.
But Paul was really, really fixated on, rightfully so, the fall of angels that were still in control, in being worshipped and everything else. In fact, that's why he said, don't worry about Rome, don't worry about this other stuff.
Yeah.
Worry about these things that are against us. And
Yeah.
I mean, whether it was Areopagus or Mars Hill or whatever, it was everywhere. And it just, I believe today, if Paul walked into the church and we weren't talking about this, it'd be like, what are y'all doing,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, exactly. And that's another reason I didn't really, I was going to look at some of that, and I didn't want to dip a toe in that, because I think, that is something I think we could put a pin in and probably, I don't know if there's any, it'd probably take some studying to put together that class, but I think you could really have a class on Paul's writings and how all the warnings he gave on how he was really in tune with that. I think that Deuteronomy 32 worldview and warned and continually warned against it. But
Going back to Corinthians, 2 Corinthians 11, and you read 14, but if you're going to read 15, 14 says, "And no wonder, for Satan disguises himself as an angel of light." 15 says, "So it is no great surprise his servants also disguise themselves."
Good point.
He's talking about the fallen angels.
very, 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 very good point, Danny. So, and then if you take that, what he said there, what he wrote there to the Corinthians, and look at what he wrote to the Galatians in Galatians 1:8, "But even if we or an angel from heaven should preach to you a gospel contrary to the one we preach to you, let him be accursed." And that kind of goes hand in hand. If you look at those two verses there, you have Satan and his angels able to disguise themselves as angels of light, which is just another warning that we're to be really grounded in the message that we.
Which makes us have to wonder today, how many of them are around us now?
I think they're you just look at you look at the state of this world. I mean, this world is wicked, and ever since the fall of Adam, it has been that way. And there's really not much change as far as the world goes. As a matter of fact, it's probably even easier to, we've talked about technology and things like that, and it greatly helps our access to God's Word. I'm sitting here looking at it on a phone, but evil is just that easy. Wicked things are just that easy to reach as well.
I don't really want to go off on a tangent here, so I apologize, but I listen to a lot of Charlie Kirk. Some people will know who that is. But he goes to these college campuses and really, from a spiritual side and a conservative side, debates. It amazes me how many young people stand on murdering babies, on trans, on all the evil in this world, and it's just in their lives, and it's like no moral compass whatsoever. And so it tells you that there's evil everywhere around you.
Yeah. It is, and I don't know what I think. You bring up Charlie Kirk. I mean, if you ever get a chance to watch some of his campus outreach and all videos that he does, I mean, I don't know what. And I know he's a religious guy, a Christian guy, but I mean, that's a guy that is out there putting a word in for God when he goes on these campuses, because he is surrounded by just pure vitriol from some of these students on these campuses.
He does it not to make this about him, but he does it in a really respectful way.
Absolutely.
Just
Absolutely.
A message to us on how we handle
It is-
diversity and people that may not agree with us. It's
Yes.
not my way or the
Yes.
highway. It's just
Yes.
in respect
Yep.
and humility.
That's that's a sidebar, but that's something if you want.
I highly recommend it.
If you want to look and see how you can win hearts, because he's done it. He's changed minds in some of those things. It can be done. Just to move on, and we got just a few more minutes here. We've looked at that was be discernful of false angels, the relevance of angels to Christians. We can find encouragement, and because angels remind us of God's active involvement in His creation. So if you look back on that, we can see a motivation for faithfulness. Their example of obedience inspires us to serve God faithfully. Confidence in God's protection. Knowing angels minister to us strengthens our trust in God's care. Many other things we looked at. We talked about it. Got mentioned in here. The classification of angels. We studied that. We looked at the angel of the Lord, his identity, the fall of Satan and his angels, and towards the tail end, this class kind of morphed into a little bit away from the study of angels especially when we got to talking about Genesis chapter 6, and we talked about angels there, and how that the sons of God mentioned there, the interpretation. We looked at a couple of cases there, whether that's a Sethite view or that's a spiritual being, angel view there, who the sons of God are there, and we kind of went with that for several weeks on this class, looking basically at Genesis, up through Genesis chapter 11. We talked about the fall of man from the garden, fall of Satan, the corruption of the world that caused the flood, then go into the Tower of Babel. Terry talked about that the week before last, and then last week we talked about how Jesus went full circle there back to Mount Hermon, the region of Bashan, and basically took the fight to the capital of evil, if you quotation mark, what that region represented, and said, his message was, well, I'm taking, God is taking it back, and that's.
He took it to Hell's Gate.
Yeah, took it to Hell's Gate. Took it to and use the analogy of Baker Mayfield planting the flag there after Oklahoma beat Ohio State, and basically that's what Jesus did. Planted God's flag right there in the middle, at the 50-yard line of the enemy.
That's where you
Yeah.
went up to the coast of Caesarea Philippi with the disciples.
Yeah. Yeah.
Toby, on one other note, on news, they were talking about Mount Hermon. And they were talking about that the UN has set up a big site on Mount Hermon. And then on the other side of the tip of the mountain is Israel. So we have the UN and Israel on the very top of Mount Hermon. And, bringing up that passage there, you wonder what really is fixing to transpire.
Yep.
I mean, we don't know.
We don't, and also mention there's been a debated where the transfiguration took place. I think it makes sense that it took place on Hermon. Given the I don't know that for sure, but wouldn't that just be another exclamation point there that Jesus takes them up on top of Mount Hermon there, and then he's seen in. They see his glorified body right there in the middle of that region, and we've covered a lot of ground, and many of these things we've just touched on them. I don't know where. Is Jeff here? I don't see Jeff. I don't know where we go next. I would. There are many branches that we could go, and I'm sure that there'll be some discussion on where we go. But I just wanted to kind of leave with this, and and it's like I said earlier. Thank you for all the words of encouragement you have given me for this class. It is. I've had several people come up to me and says, "Man, this is just something that we just don't normally talk about in the church because it's frankly." I don't know if it's because people are kind of intimidated by it. I was a lot intimidated by it because at the end of this study, there's still probably a lot of questions. I still have questions, and it's things that we don't have answers to. And I just wanted to leave you with this. We as human beings are limited in our understanding. And what we find in the Bible, especially on this subject, is the testimony of the supernatural. When you talk about the supernatural, you have ultimate reality breaking into the limited reality of the natural world. And that can be difficult for our limited minds to grasp and understand. But when it comes down to it, if you want to summarize, just summarize what the ultimate reality is that there is a God. He desires a family. He has a spiritual family, and he also has a human family. Our current world is not the end product. There really is evil, malevolent forces at work in our world. Humanity in its natural state is enslaved to them. Christ came to defeat the ultimate evil one and break the power of death. Those who put their faith in Christ have a part to play in that kingdom of God mission. When it is all said and done, this natural world of corruption will be replaced with a new creation where a new kind of humanity will rule with Christ. That's the ultimate reality. And I just wanted to, I wanted to circle back to this passage in 2 Kings and just leave you with that as we close. 2 Kings 6:14 through 17. Picking up with verse 14, so he, talking about the king of Syria, sent their horses and chariots and a great army, and they came by night and surrounded the city. This is the king of Syria going to the city where Elisha was, just circling the city. And we talked about this a couple of times in this study. When the servant of the man there, the man of God, talking about the servant of Elisha, rose early in the morning and went out, behold, an army with horses and chariots was all around the city. And the servant said, alas, my master, what shall we do? Verse 16, Elisha here, he said, do not be afraid, for those who are with us are more than those who are with them. Then Elisha prayed and said, O Lord, please open his eyes that he may see. So the Lord opened the eyes of the young man, and he saw, and behold, the mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha. I just want to leave you with verse 16, what Elisha said there. Do not be afraid, for those who are with us are more than those who are with them. Thank you all for this study. It has been just truly a pleasure. Thank you.